Welcome to another Nikkicolesurfer podcast. Today's guest is Danielle. Danielle is an artist, a surfer, a mother, an encourager, a great community member, and so many other things. And I'm so stoked to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm stoked to be here. So I'm doing this with you.
So the first point where we met was actually I was packing surfboards and working customer service at a surfboard factory, Eric's one over in the Sugar Mill.
Yeah.
And you come by and you were just so passionate about your art and you're so passionate about helping people and just like encouraging people in their journey. And that was one of the things that I really hope people get from you today.
Aww.
Is like how you stay motivated, how you stay encouraged in your journey with your art and your surfing and Amua and all the things you've accomplished so far.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I love doing it. So I remember that. I remember meeting you and being like, wow, she's so cool. She's like level-headed, down to earth. Like I want to go to the shop to see her. Because I used to be like, I'm going to the shop and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so boring. But at least I had you there. I was like, I'll go with you.
Oh. Well, great. Well, tell a little bit about your backstory. How did you end up on the North Shore and how did you end up as an artist?
Well, let's see. When I was, I grew up in Florida and I always wanted to be an artist, but I was playing soccer and I ended up playing for Florida Southern College, and I was under contract for 4 years. So, like Hawaii and like being an artist and all those things was like not doable. I was getting my degree in art at the time. I was studying to be a doctor, and then I got my minor in arts, but I loved art way more than being a doctor. So I said, you know what? I can't do this. Like, I'm miserable for the rest of my life, even though I'd probably have a great amount of money,
Mm-hmm.
But I changed my major while I was playing soccer, and I just finished out my college and decided like, oh, I want to move to Hawaii and be an artist and a surfer. And people are like, what? Like, you're like this soccer person and you could go further like professionally, but I was done,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, every day I woke up sore. I felt like an old person because like I was so sore all the time. And I was happy, but I just wasn't like thrilled about my life, and I was dreaming about Hawaii. So one day I just like literally sold everything I had, freaked my whole family out, went across the whole ocean just to land here for the first time. I'd never been here. And I just said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to surf. And fast forward a bunch of years later, I'm still here doing it. So I'm super, super stoked. I'm excited. And I'm getting my master's degree right now in art and art business, so that I can like truly drive the point home. Like my art is like my vessel, and like I'm learning about storytelling, which is why this is so cool, is that your brand, I do art, but that's not like the special thing. It's like the story that comes with the art and everything. So so I'm progressing like that, evolving.
You said that there was definitely a point where you were dreaming about coming here, and it takes a lot of courage to pack up, sell all the things that you have, and just send it on a one-way. What was that process like?
So in that respect, I'm really different from most people in the way that like the way I grew up was not really secure. Like I didn't have a lot of like I didn't have like a certain address, like we lived everywhere. We moved to like a million different houses, and it was just me, my dad, and my brother. And I honestly think that growing up motherless was like great for me, and sometimes on my journey people be like, oh, are you okay? Like, oh my gosh, you didn't have a mom. Like, it's okay that you're weak in these areas. And I'm like, no, it's not okay. Like, so everything that like kind of scared me or was different, like I could confront that. And one of those things was moving across the country by myself, or like, going somewhere I'd never been before, hearing my dad say, oh, you're like a girl in the world, and like, unfortunately watching terrible movies before I travel. Oh my god, don't ever watch the movie Taken before you travel.
Before you're about to travel.
Just don't do it.
And you're like turning your head at the airport, like, oh gosh.
I watched that movie and I was like, oh my god, maybe I don't ever want to go anywhere ever again.
Oh gosh.
Don't watch it. Just don't watch it. It's terrible. But I don't know. I just knew that like I had forged like with soccer and like growing up the way I grew up, that like I wasn't very scared of many things. And if I did have a fear of something and it was like a positive something that I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna do that. And like now my brand for my art is impossible, because so many people are like, no, that's impossible what you're trying to do. And I was like, I mean, I can count on my hands like all the things that people told me I would never do. And like to this day I've accomplished each of them. So that's why like right now I'm like doing branding in my company. And there's like a hero archetype, if you should look that up actually. Okay. Archetype, everyone should know their like archetype when they're doing their passions, because then it works into your branding and kind of makes all the puzzles of like who you are and the things that you do like come together, and you can like relay that better to your audience. So yeah, I mean, coming out here was just like a decision of, I can do this. You know, everyone's like, nah, you're gonna be lost somewhere, you're gonna get eaten by a volcano, you're like, there's no way you'll ever be an artist or a surfer, like you've never surfed before. And I'm like, I'm gonna go.
You're talking about how you came from a background where there was a lot of movement, there was a lot of change, so change was something you were used to.
Yeah.
And then when you got out here, you didn't know how to surf yet. How was that?
That was interesting, because in Florida everything's sand, you can't see the bottom. And the waves are probably not very big, you know, so I came here and I paddled out thinking like, oh, this is going to be kind of easy because I'm an athlete and I'm like in really great shape, and oh my God, I got destroyed. I hit the reef. I just remember the first time I was like bloody everywhere. I came out, people were like laughing like, oh, we just wanted to see what you were going to do, and I was just like, okay, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought. And I just every day went. It was like literally like, have you ever seen Chasing Mavericks? That little boy. I went and got like the crappiest surfboard I could find with like holes in it. I took it out every single day and I just practiced. And like now, like all these years later, I won the state championships 3 times and then went nationally. So it was like, wow, like, you know, within 6 years, like, people are like, oh, you're so old to start surfing, like there's no way you can do it. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna do it, you know. And then within 6 years time I did those things, and I was just like, okay, now my art, now I gotta start making my art happen. So
does it almost in a sense, because you've said this 2 times so far, is like people have doubted you, do you use that as kind of fuel to like keep going, or what?
Sure.
What do you do when you have doubters?
I mean, I think, you know, I went through a really weird period in school where I had like major bullying, to the point where I had to move to a different school.
Wow.
Because I found out I was dyslexic, you know, like really dyslexic, and my teachers were like, do you remember those Scantron sheets, or have you ever used?
Yes.
So you would bubble in the answer.
Yeah.
And I would read the test question and I knew all of them. Like I never not knew a question answer. But I would write them on the side of Scantron sheet because I couldn't differentiate the A, B, and C, and I couldn't even see them, and it was like, it was a nightmare. So then, of course, my teachers were like, oh, you're doing this for attention because you don't have a mom, and this is like an attention-seeking thing because you know the answers and you're like a great student. But as I got older, it got worse for me. And then finally, this like really amazing teacher was like, you know, I think you have something like that I can help you with. So she tested me, and turns out I was like severely dyslexic.
Wow. At what age did you find out you were dyslexic?
Like 9 or 10, somewhere around there. Yeah, like right around there. But I had like, my teacher at the time was like, oh, class, we need to acknowledge that there's a student, one of your peers has dyslexia, so we're moving her desk to the back. And then after that, people were like, I mean, kids, you know how kids are, it's like, oh my gosh, she has dyslexia, like don't touch her, like you're gonna die if you go near her, you're gonna get stupid if you go near her. And my teacher like accentuated the point, so it made it so bad for me that, you know, like I moved to a different school, and I just like kept really quiet, you know. And like I just remember feeling like I don't want to be this person in the back of the room, like my dad every day fights to put food on the table, and like, you know, like I watched him battle, and I was like, I don't care what anyone says about me, like I'm gonna go for it, you know. And people felt sorry for me, or they didn't like me because I was so different, you know. So I think over time I just like developed a thick skin. Like I didn't have a mom to go home and be like, Mom, like they said this. My dad's like, well honey, you need to like get going, like don't feel sorry for yourself, go out, practice your soccer. And it's so funny, I was just talking to somebody today about how, this is really hard to explain, but nature was like my family. Like I could go outside and I was accepted, like be in nature. And then once sports came into my life, that became like the mother for me. And I know that sounds really weird, but when it came to like athletic pursuits or like anything in the pursuit of impossibility, I was just on fire. I was like, yeah, somebody doubts me, I'm gonna go, And then, I just really developed a thick skin to like not be a victim. And I just like always remember to like, I'm not gonna let people feel sorry for me. I want people to look at me and be like, oh wow, like we were wrong about her. But more for myself, because I don't want to live like that, I lived like that for like a couple years after I found out that I had dyslexia, and I was just quiet and like freaked out and just like trying not to make anyone notice me. Just like I wanted to disappear. And I was like, I can't live like that. Like I have so much I want to be thankful for. And then sports came and I was really good, and then everything changed for me, like in my whole life, I was like needed, my team needed me, and like what I had, I couldn't be denied, I was like really good at soccer, and I could run cross country and swim and do volleyball, and I was really good. So then that changed my life. So like I said, like sport is like my mom, it's a really weird way.
Do you think in sports you were accepted a lot more by the other athletes as well?
Oh, for sure. Like that was like the first time in my life that I felt like, other than of course like my dad and my brother, but they were always, my dad was gone working 3 jobs. My brother was a really good soccer player as well, and he was always gone traveling. So it was like me by myself. Like I figured out how to go to school, I figured out how to feed myself, I figured out how to get home. And while my dad loved me so much and he was there and he provided as much as he could provide, like, like I was just not really, not accepted, but I was just like this weird girl. But then when I played sports and people were like, oh, how do you do that? Or like, oh, like teach me. And then I'm like, wow, I have something that other people do want to be a part of. And it's like my family and the team and a place to belong and not be weird, and like something that I'm good at that I can share. So yeah, for sure they were really nice to me after that.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because you say like from a young age, and I've seen this too, is like when the kids in the classroom see the one person who's different, whether it's dyslexia or any other thing, even if it's the color of their shirt, it's like super bright, or they have a lot of fashion or anything. Yeah. There's definitely like, there's this idea of kind of almost conforming in the classroom. Yeah. And so as soon as you stand out, it becomes like this thing that you get made fun of when you're young, but when you're older and you're like beyond school, everyone wants to find out how to stand out again.
Totally. It's so bizarre. There's like a guy that actually talks about that. He's like, we're in a rush to grow up. Oh man, I wish I had this quote, but it's so cool. And it was basically saying like how you're in a rush to grow up, and then you're in a rush to get rich, and then by the time you're rich, you've lost your health, so then you spend your time getting that back and like figuring out how to be a kid again. But it's true. It's like, like people who are different definitely get the rap when they're young, and then get made fun of or whatever it is, and then when you get older, it's like, oh, how can I not be like everyone else?
Yeah.
So, but I carried it with me for sure. I was very insecure, even still to this day. Like I'm working on it, but sometimes I'm really insecure about like myself. Like, oh, like my body does not look like that, or like this, or my my art doesn't look like that. I think it's everybody has that, but it's confronting it, and that's when being a mom like literally like healed me in a way that I can't even. Yeah, becoming a mother was everything.
Can you describe the healing process that you went through becoming a mom?
Yeah, I mean, at first, like when I was pregnant, I was like having these like, I was worried. I was like, oh my God, I don't even know what a mom is. Like, is it gonna be okay? Should I close the door?
We can.
I'll close the door. That's loud. That's totally loud. I was really like having anxiety about like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know what a mom is. Like I've never even said the word mom in my whole life, So it was like, But then, you know, I just like listened to like my inner thing, like, okay, it's okay. Like, you've gotten through so many things, you know? And then when he came out, it was like, I laughed because it was literally like my head opened and the whole universe became like this all-knowing. I knew what to do with him. I felt like love for him. And then in the times to come when I was exhausted and tired and had no one to call, it was like he was teaching me. He was like, had a certain cry. I don't know, it was just like all my instincts came in, and it was almost like a blessing that I never had any influence, because I could pick up on those things like blindly, you know? And then as he got older and I heard him start saying the word mom, wow.
Was that surreal?
It was crazy. The first day he said mom, I was like, I sat there and she was like, he said mom. And I was just like, I don't even know like if I'm happy or sad. Like, I'm not sure what's happening to me right now, but I was just like, I wanted to cry, I wanted to scream, I wanted to like, it was crazy. But then all of a sudden I started experiencing what it would be to be a mother by being a mother. It was like going so far inside that like I finally had all those years of being like, whoa, that's so cool, like a mom. So like the healing process was like really looking down at myself and being like, wow, I made this. Like, I was never supposed to have a child because I had an accident playing soccer and I severed my insides so bad. So I got like, they took a heat gun, this sounds crazy, but they took like a heat gun and then they cauterize, you know, wherever's been injured inside of you. So basically, like, you can never like conceive a kid. Like, you can have a baby, but it would have to be planted. So when this happened, it was like a miracle. Like, like, how did this happen? And my doctor was like, well, miracles happen, you know? So like the fact that my body was like good enough to make him, and like I started loving myself and like being more like secure when I went outside, like, oh, you know, like I'm a part of this whole world now. Like, I'm not so much of this outsider. Like, now I've experienced motherhood and now I'm not missing that big hole in me. So then I started enjoying like the things that I used to like hate, like going into crowds, talking to people and meeting new people, because it's always like, oh, how's your family? Where are they from? And I'm like, you know, and then people are like, where's your mom? And I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. But now I really enjoy talking about it. And I do believe that there's women out there who, I mean, we're like a weird, rare case. It's like 0.00065% of girls don't have mothers, or mothers that chose to leave them. So my mom, she left and she still lives and she has 2 other kids. So that's like a weird thing for me. I'm just like, so weird, but I know for a fact that like that was like one of my deepest pains, and now like that's what I was chosen to like maybe try to help fix, you know, for other women. Because when I was growing up, people were like, I don't know what to do with you. Like, I've never heard of a girl without a mom. So like, I don't know. You know, I went to like counseling a couple times when they thought I was acting out, and I was just like, I don't know. And they're like, you're angry, and I'm like, no, I'm not angry. Like, I promise. Like. I'm not angry. And they're like, you're angry and you just, it's like a subconscious anger. And I'm like, I don't think so. I'm not sure, you know. And then when I had Imua, I just realized like, I'm so thankful that she left me. And I'm so thankful that she at least carried me full term and put me in the hands of like my dad. And I don't have any anger for her. Like, I'm so thankful because now I have my son. I'm sitting here with you, I have art, I surf, I live in Hawaii. Like, she did me a service, you know? And now I can maybe use that to like change other people's lives and maybe change the narrative around like motherhood and how we treat moms so that our world can heal, you know? It's a lot.
It's a lot and it's heavy, but it's those things that you go through that make you who you are. And one of the interesting things is like going back and thinking of it. I've heard people say like, if there's something you could change about your past, would you change anything at all?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't change anything. I mean, I just can't even like explain how rare and special I feel now that I had Imua. Like, it's like the second he came to this world, I finally felt like, wow, I'm something, you know, like I truly, maybe not to like the world, you know, like of people and Instagram and this and that, but like to the world of like what we do naturally is like pieces of nature and pieces of God. Like I felt really special. So everything I've been through, no matter how painful or alone, it was just for this, you know. It was like to be good enough to be his mom and be here now, you know. So it's like a test.
Yeah. No, and it's beautiful to see it all come together, but definitely along the way there are a lot of like twists and turns.
Oh, for sure. I've had dark days. Like I remember I was married when I was on the Big Island, and our, you know, relationship ended, and it was dark for me. It was very dark. People chose sides. People said terrible things about me, and some people remained my friends, but that was a dark point in my life that I didn't know if I was going to come back from. You know, I was just like, oh man, maybe this one's gonna take me out. But I was like, no way. So then I moved to the North Shore and like just completely restarted my life. And I swear I moved here and everything just like made sense, you know. And then I met Shaden on the Big Island, but we were just friends. And then we met over here again, and we just kind of were friends. And we would see each other, hang out, and then eventually we kind of were like, oh, we kind of like each other. And I was like, oh, you're really young, and I'm kind of old, and I mean, we have like a 9.5 year difference, so it was just like, I can't be with this young guy, like, what am I doing? But it wasn't even about that anymore. It was like, his soul and my soul were just like the same, you know? And very different, but very much the same.
So we talked about your family history, and we talked about how you picked up surfing. When was the first time you painted any piece of art?
Man, honestly, when I moved here, so actually that's not true. When I was in school, I studied art, but it was graphic designs that I was studying, and like I had an art class, and I had a teacher named William Ochemsky, and he was the scariest human being on the planet.
Why was he scary?
He's the most brilliant human. He's very smart. He's very emotionally intelligent, but he was like, no BS. If your work was not good, he was going to tell you. And he talked in this voice, and he was like, excuse me? And I was just like, oh gosh. Man, he was the most intimidating person, and I had him. And I remember one day we were doing a critique, and he did not hold back. If he didn't like what you were doing, he would tell you. And he told me, he's like, you know, you might be a really good graphic designer, but your art is shit. And it would be better used for firewood in the courtyard. And I was just like, oh my God. He's like, but you're cool as a human. Like, you're cool. Just maybe not as an artist. And I was just like, oh God, okay.
What type of art was he teaching? Was it like a certain type? Was it a general art class?
It was just general figure drawing, which I was not good at. And then it turned into like any kind of paint that you like to do, like expressive, like some people did realism. I had no idea. I was just like, dude, I don't know. I just would splash paint around, and I didn't know how to draw very well. And it was terrible. To be honest, he was completely right. It was terrible. And I didn't really take direction too well because I was like focused on soccer and all these other things. I was like, I don't want to be a painter. And then I remember like a year before I decided to move to Hawaii, I just fell in love with painting. And it was just like really weird figures, people without faces, just really basic stuff. And then I really fell in love, and I was like, I want to move to Hawaii. I don't know why I picked Hawaii, but it was always called to me, you know. Moved here, and I did my first piece called, it was a King Kamehameha piece that I did. And it ended up being like the most searched for piece of Hawaiian art, or of King Kamehameha, on Google for like 4 years straight.
Wow.
And I was just like, oh my God. And then I got really lucky to do the Real Sun Menehune contest, and then the poster for that, and like a few other things. And then I was just like, it's on. Like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to surf, and I want to do art and be happy for the rest of my life. So it took a while, but you know, in the realm of starting things, I guess I started late on everything, you know, but I just excelled because like I was driven. I was like, nothing's gonna stop me.
Why do you think you were so driven, and why you're still that driven today?
I don't know. I asked myself the same thing because like right now I get up at 4 o'clock every single day to do my school until before my son wakes up, and then I take care of him, and if he takes a nap, which he's starting not to anymore, I work, and then when he goes to bed, I work. So I just really think that like I'm determined to just change the world. I know that sounds a really big job, but like I know that when people have passions and they get cut down by the world, that they kind of like shy away from giving their gifts, and that's why we're in this really weird place. Like, you know, like you see all these things happening in the world, and it's because people can't harness what they have inside of them, you know? And I feel like if I can just like inspire myself and people to just like keep going and moving forward always, no matter what it is, and to use, you know, like bad things as like a really good opportunity. You know, you hear that all the time and it doesn't make sense, but then when you come out of something, you're like, wow, okay, I survived that, I can keep going. But I guess my drive is just that like I don't want to be mediocre or average. Like I want to be the best, you know, and I want to like make sure that my son sees me doing these things so that he knows like nothing can stop him. And I think the, you know, like the bad programming that's taken over kids lately and like social media, like that's all like toxic. It's toxic. So like if we can all like inspire each other to be more organic of like our gifts inside, like that's, to me, that drives me like on fire. Have you ever seen those things where there's a man and he goes up to someone and he's like, hey man, I'm so hungry, like is there any way I can borrow like $4? And the guy gives him $4 even though he's poor or whatever, and then he turns around and he gives him like $1,000 and he's like, man, I love you, I just want you to know that like you're amazing and you're capable and you have a kind heart. And like that's kind of what I want to do with like my art and stuff, is like show people like, hey man, like you can do anything. Like I was at the bottom of every totem pole for as long as I can remember, and I still climbed up every single one of them that I chose to, you know, and like did well. So I guess I just really want to be able to like help people like in any way I can. And I don't know, some people take the message of art and they take it like, how do I explain this? There was a girl that came to me like 4 years ago, and she's like, oh my God, I saw this piece of art, I really need to talk to you. And I was like, okay. And it was like 3 a.m, I just woke up, or I don't know what happened, but I checked my phone and it was just like this random message on Facebook. Turns out the girl was like about to commit suicide, and she saw one of my paintings and she was like, oh my God, I feel this painting, like what happened to you? And we just ended up talking, and she ended up not killing herself. And then 2 years later, she came back to me, bought the painting, and put it into a wellness center that she made.
Wow.
And like helping other girls with like rape or things like that, you know? And I was just like, whoa, my art did that. Like that's crazy. So like that's the kind of thing, you know, powerful to some people.
Yeah, just knowing that what you're doing actually like changes people. It moves people. When people see your art, that they can see part of your story.
Totally. And theirs too. And like there's like a meeting point where it's like, oh, we're just like each other, we're not alone. Like even though I don't know you, or maybe you're a complete stranger, like we're together, like we are united, you know? I found out something really cool about art that I didn't know. I don't know if you know this either, but anytime a ruler would go into another country, or Hitler went into, you know, to go take over something, the first thing they do was destroy all the art.
Really?
That was the first thing they did. Yeah.
Isn't it because art's the cornerstone of culture?
Exactly. So like, and art gives people this like courage, like to dream, and that, you know, like something, there's a record of somebody else's history and like culture and dreams, you know. So what they did is they knew the power of that, and they went and destroyed all the art. That was the first thing they did.
Wow.
I just learned that when I was taking my mastery course, and I was like,
that's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So they knew that art was like a vessel to save the world. And like my teacher talks a lot about that. And she's like, people who do art are world changers. Even if it's creative art, even if it's, you know, anything that you create with your hands from a source of God, you know, or whatever power people believe in, it changes the world. So that's why they would destroy artists and art. Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Hitler did that. He was like, terrible man, but he was brilliant in the way he, went about things. So I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Art can really speak to people in so many ways. And for someone out there who's maybe trying to explore and figure out what their gifts are, what would you recommend for them to do?
Man, I would say find what it is, like something that makes you really happy. Like, I guess to find it, you have to do a little exploring in life too, like if something that's foreign to you, or some people they know, but if you're trying to find, I would say like start where you're happiest, like, let's just say you love animals or you love plants, you could start discovering ways that plants could be medicine, or plants could be food, or plants could be, I guess it's just whatever the happiness is in you and like what you think that you can share with other people. That's a really great way to like hone in on what you should do. I don't think we think as a community too much anymore and like what we can do for each other. And that's where I think like creative people are so cool, is because they're not just painting to be like, okay, this is gonna sit in my house and just do nothing. They're like, okay, there's somebody out there that may hate this painting, and then there's somebody out there who this was made for, and it's my job to like find them. Whereas like this, like almost like this, like, I don't know, like this really crazy treasure hunt all the time, to find the soul, or vice versa. So I don't know, I guess people I just really think that they should find what makes them happy, because or even listen to the inner whispers, like, the thing where it's like, no, don't do that, don't do that, and you're like, nah, I think I'm gonna do that. Or you gotta listen to that little thing, that's important. Yeah.
So you've gone through a lot of challenges in your life. You ended up coming out to the North Shore. You overcame a lot more challenges. You stayed here, you're creating art here, you're surfing here on a level that's very respectable on the North Shore.
Aw, thanks.
And what's crazy is the North Shore, of course, it's a 7-mile miracle.
Yeah.
And you're out there surfing right amongst like the world champion surfers. Tell a little bit about where your surfing has gone today versus your first paddle out.
Oh my gosh, if you would have told me that day when I came in bloody and just like frustrated that I would be able to surf the waves that I'm surfing, the way that I'm surfing, I would have been like, I really hope so, but I don't think so, but I really hope so. And even now, like, even though I'm at this level, I'm like, God, I want to be better. I will say though that since I gave birth to Ingua and made that comeback, it was really tough. It was tough because your body's changing, but I'm the best I've ever been right now, which is really crazy because I'm older, but like, I don't know, being a mom, and that's like something I'm really working on, but being a mom that surfs is tough. You have like 30 minutes to an hour to yourself, and you have to battle people, and it's not just people, it's the best ever. It's like, even the average guy on the North Shore is pretty good, and the girls are sometimes better than the guys, but to be here and doing this is like a dream for me. And it's funny because like my art doesn't exist without surfing, and surfing doesn't exist without art and working out, and it's like they're a symbiotic relationship to each other, so it's like I can't believe sometimes that I'm here.
Yeah.
But I can.
And it's kind of like, do you see your surfing playing into your creative process when you're painting? Is that kind of hand in hand? Or is it just like headspace? Or
I think it's more of a headspace thing for me, like drawing inspiration from the ocean, or like colors, or like sometimes when I'm like going like a big piece or something, it's like I'll do a movement and I'm like, oh, that was just like a turn right there. It was like, oh, that was a backside turn, or that was a front side turn, or when I'm drawing waves, that's when it really comes into play. I'm like, oh, I can remember this spot right when you're close up, or curves or bends, or But they definitely work together for sure.
Now that we've talked a bit about your past and your present, let's talk about your future. What do we have to look forward to with your art and your surfing and everything that you're doing?
Oh, that's so exciting. I love talking about that. So right now, I have all these paintings in a whole new style because I'm going to be graduating. It kind of disappeared for a year. Like people were writing me like, oh my God, are you okay? Like you don't post art anymore. you're like, is something wrong? You know, it's like somebody, you disappear from Instagram, and instead of being like, wow, good for them, you think like, oh, are they okay? Like, so I disappeared. I have like completely rebranded, transformed my art, like no oil, watercolor, anything you can think of, like, you know, has been taught to me by the Milan Art Institute. And they spoke to me in a way that no one's ever spoken to me about art, and it's like completely remastered, like everything I thought, or, you know, like my approach, I guess. But in that, in the time that I had downtime, and the whole surfing venture for me really took a turn when I kind of took on the responsibility of changing the world for mothers. I know a lot of people who surf really good, or are professional surfers, who've had things stripped from them, contracts taken from them. You know, like you see women out in the water where you know they're moms, people are burning them. You know, basically, like, there's not many of us. There's, you know, it's kind of like this really rare breed of women out there, like surfing in between working and being a mother. And I decided to make this company called Imua Moms that I'm working on right now.
That's so exciting.
And yeah, I'm so stoked. And my hope with it is just that we can create something for just moms, whether, you know, you're a ripper or not, but you're passionate to your comeback, where, you know, like maybe they will be the oldest or the, you know, the mom sponsored woman just for that cause, you know, like there has to be a space, you know, that's sacred for them. So yeah, that's been something I'm working on, and it's been getting a lot of attention. I got a couple of interviews about it. I did a interview in this magazine, and women from around the world were just flooding my emails with like, oh my god, this happened to me, and it would be so nice if you're gonna make this brand, if I could be a part of it. And I just hope that like if or when it comes like that, when people see Imua on the top of you know, a surfboard or something, that they'll be like, oh wow, this is a mom, she doesn't have much time, and we should like let her have some, you know, a minute, because mom's mental health hinges on their outlet. And you can't get away sometimes, and it's like, I've seen women really suffer. Thank God, like, I didn't have this, but I see postpartum depression in women really bad, especially athletes, because they get no respect anymore in the water. Yeah, so that's something I'm really working on now, and it was crazy because Nike kind of caught wind of this, and their like innovators came to my house.
No way.
They came here and they interviewed me about this, about
That's
like,
amazing.
I couldn't believe it. I was just like, wow, it must be something like really cool going on, because if you really think about it from the standpoint of a company like Nike, or I don't know, anything, Hurley, whatever, you know, the market to appeal to mothers is huge. Like, if you had a brand that was dedicated to moms, every mother and everybody would invest into that, and you know, like, it's endless. And not only that, then we would start building generations of like healed women who would be leading healed children, and then, you know, our world would become a little less crazy.
Yeah, it makes the world a better place, and
Yeah.
it starts on a small scale and one by one.
Totally. Yeah, it's like they did a study, and women, mothers particularly, are the saddest and more broken than they've ever felt.
Really?
They've given up. Like they literally, yeah, there was like this interview done by like Jordan Peterson, and it was basically that women and mothers feel like they can't, the problem has become so big and society has turned their back on mothers completely that they just give up. And like, I see that happen a lot, you know, with people I know, and they're just like, oh, I can't do that, I'm a mom now. And I'm like, no, you have to do that because you're a mom. Like, your son is watching, or you know,
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you know, if I, and I feel like it has to be me to do this, because I've been like so oppressed from motherhood, you know, like, not by choice, you know, like it was mine to handle. And I could have either went way the other way and like been a miserable, terrible, evil person, or I could have went this way and took on the responsibility of maybe doing something, even if it's a small something, to like bring back the champion of mothers, you know, or for the first time ever. Some cultures like really love mothers, but most don't, especially the Western.
Yeah, when you look at the Western, like, I don't know, I've had the privilege to travel to a couple of places that are considered like not Western, and the way that they are so centered around community and families, and like generationally helping each other. And you do see some of the multi-generational living here in Hawaii, but a lot of it's due to the cost of living.
Totally.
But you see like a lot of those cultures like really keeping that respect and focus on motherhood. But when you come here, it's like,
get out of the way.
It's kind of like pushed to the side. And I saw this statistic a while back, and I can't remember what it was from, but it was like in this article, and it's like the average child has like 7 people raising them, and like the aunties and uncles and people in their life.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But a lot of times that pressure is just put on one person, the mother.
Yeah, and it's like, what is that? It takes a village, right?
Yes.
Like, but then like now you look around and there's no village, and something that I really love about Hawaii is that the beaches are filled with moms, you know, like watching their kids, and you know the dads are out surfing, or you know whatever it is. But like Hawaii still has that thing, like if you are a mom and you went to the beach, and you could totally go up to any mom and be like, hey, I'm having a really rough day right now, like can you watch my kid for a second, you know? Like anywhere else somebody would probably take your kid, but here we all know each other, so it's like you could go down to the beach and like, I don't know if you know Jen. Do you know Jen Tema? Luke Tema, he's a surfer here. But like when I first gave birth to Imua, and it was during COVID too, which was a whole nother story, but she was there for me. Like she was like, oh, anything you need, you know, like, you know, I know lots of people would help too, and she kind of turned my brain on that, like, women aren't so scary, you know? She was like a mother to me in a way, you know? So that was pretty cool. But it's just like, you know, there's a lot of things that we all could do, you know, and I feel kind of guilty too, because like I did have friends that were young and they had kids, and I did the bad thing, and I was like, oh, yeah, you're busy, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go and do my thing. And that's what the world does to mothers, and I did it to other women. So I'm just like sitting in my chair, just like humbled when I had Imua, like, dude, I blew it with so many women. Like, I gotta like make this right, you know, like I gotta tell people from the first view of being a mom and having a mom for the first time in the last 3 years of my life, like what it is to discover the power of a mom. And that's what the world has to do, is like really discover, because you know what a mom is, especially when you have one, you're like, okay, but then when you start seeing like the effects of like our world, and like look at people are crazy now, like some of the stuff I see, I'm just like, wow. And it truly is the absence of love, you know, or like emotional intelligence, or like you watch your mom struggle, you're gonna be an angry person, or if your mom's angry all the time, you're gonna kind of like take that on, you know. And I see that happening a lot, so I'm just like, okay, I gotta do something. I don't know exactly what, but I know that women in sports, it's like, that's super important. So I'll start there. That's where I know I can start, is in sports.
You gotta start with something.
Totally. Yeah, so I'm like, well, how am I gonna do this? So then one day I was in the woods, and I was like, I just gotta do something for women in sports first. I have to make a way in.
Speaking of mothers and what you're doing with the MUA and like kind of that motherhood movement, what are some of the things communities can do better to get around mothers?
Man, I just think like when you know like one of your friends, or like they're, you know, like I guess just coming to that person, be like, is there anything you need? And then if they cast it away, that's, you know, at least there was thought. Well, I mean, I guess I was pregnant in COVID, so that was a totally different thing, but I just know that like we struggled to like eat, not because we didn't have money or food, but it was because we were so caught up in taking care of this baby, and like I didn't have time to cook, and I didn't have time to clean or do anything. I just was like trying to make sure this creature was living and that we were doing a good job. And you know, Shaden's a professional surfer, and he had to keep up his end of the deal with, and it was really hard. So like going out to surf was definitely my saving grace, but sometimes I would go out and I would get so battled, and I would just come in crying. And that's why I was like, you know what, people need to know, like, okay, if they see Mua on the edge of a surfboard or something, or any kind of symbol that says, hey, I'm on, like, basically I'm on break, just give me 3 waves and I'll be happy. Like, that would save my life. I think that's where we can start. And that's like acknowledging that like, okay, there's a mother out here, like she's gonna be out here for 30 minutes, we have the whole day, or whatever it is. Or it could even be a father, because my dad was he was a single dad and he was my mother. So like, I know a couple of dads right now who do the same as me. They run out there, they have like 30 minutes to go surf for themselves, and then they go in. And it's those 30 minutes that could change someone's life, or like really, really make a difference. So like, that's why I wanted to make Emo Moms, is like, if someone sees that, they're gonna be like, okay, got the message, I'm not gonna hassle you and make you feel terrible. Yeah, so I think that's one of the things. And then the other thing is just, you know, making mothers, like especially here on the North Shore, there's beautiful girls everywhere, everyone's in their bikinis, and then you see the moms, and like, it's hard to keep up, you know, but then, you know, like they're beautiful in their own right. So sometimes like, that's a tough one actually, but that's something that I struggled with. I was like, I'm definitely not 20 and my butt has like some cellulite. So, but like, just like loving all of us, you know, like maybe not just always like, yeah, I don't know actually. I just know something with body image and stuff.
I think something along the gist of what you're saying is like appreciating what your body can do and what your body has been a vessel for, and like what you're able to do because of all the functionality of your body, and you're taking care of yourself. But also like, aging is a beautiful thing.
Totally.
And it's a natural thing, and you're not going to look the same when you're 18, 20, 25, 30, 35, like all the way, you know?
Totally. Yeah, there's, I guess it kind of comes back to surfing again, like surfing brands and like what they're perpetuating. And like, I mean, I've been in situations where I'm like, oh man, I would love to get sponsored by this company, but because, I mean, no discredit to any beautiful girls at all. I think it's amazing that, you know, girls are so beautiful and you know, whatever. But there are times when companies will sponsor solely girls because they look a certain way and not do a certain thing, you know, like, so if you're pretty hot, you're gonna get sponsored, but if you're like not so hot, but you rip and you stand for something, like, you're not gonna get sponsored, you know? Yeah. So like, that's kind of like something that I saw in surfing personally, that I was like, oh heck no, you're not gonna like disclude me out of this, you know? So it's like, oh, my own thing. I'm gonna surf for myself, and like my you know, my boyfriend surfs, so I just gotta keep going. But if I could sometimes just like drive the point home that I'm gonna be out here for 30 minutes, like, I'm not saying that I'm more deserving, I'm just saying that for my mental health, like right now in this period, like, please just let me have 3 waves. Yeah. So yeah, that would help mothers a lot. I know a lot of moms that around here that would be like, dude, if I could just get like a couple of waves, my day would be so much better. And it's hard, man. Motherhood will break you. It will break you. Some days you're like on top of the world, and some days you're like, oh my god, oh my god. You just have to keep it together. It is beautiful. It's amazing.
Sweet. And then talking more about your experiences here on the North Shore. So you've done the stuff with Imua, you've got this wonderful motherhood group that you've got going, which is going to make an amazing impact. You're doing a lot with art, you're doing a lot with surfing. Sometimes I see you running on the bike path too.
For sure.
You're doing everything all the time. How do you juggle? How do you balance? How do you rest?
That's tricky. That's a tricky one. We have like a really delicate balance in our life. You know, like, we don't have like family that lives here, so we do everything 100% by ourselves. So like, Shaden is such a good father, and like, I don't think if he wasn't as dedicated to the family, that this balance would just not work. Like, he is the reason that I can still do everything. He's a good father, and some days the waves are firing, and he knows. He's like, babe, you haven't done anything, go running, go surfing, go paint. And I'm like, okay. So we have this kind of like deal that we have with each other. It's like, okay, we're gonna have this baby, and we promise each other, like, we literally sat down like on 2 chairs like this, and it's like, let's make a promise to each other, like, you still have to go after your dreams, and I have to go after, and he said the same to me, and I was like, we're not gonna stop, okay? We're gonna keep going. And that, we literally did such a good job staying true to that. So we literally trade off. We literally all day long, we're like, okay, I'm gonna go work out, and you're gonna go with Imua, and then sometimes we'll do everything together, or I'll run with him, or I'll go surf with him, and then we literally just day by day balance each other, work together, be present with Imoa. Like that's our main thing. But I basically just I just work with him. We just work together, and there's nobody else involved. So it's like we have to make this work. And I've done so many of my dreams already that like I look at Shaden and I'm like, you're so good. Like he's one of the best surfers I can think of, you know. And I'm like, you have a shot. Like you can get on tour. So like there's parts of me that'll be like, you know what? No, I'm good. Like I don't need any free time. Like you go take the days. I know pipe's firing. I know that's where your heart is. Like just go. And then there'll be days where he does that for me too. So I don't know. We work really diligent on not wasting time.
Yeah.
And we just like, we're constantly attacking everything, you know, like we don't sit, maybe if it's raining, we'll sit inside, but Imo is like gonna be on the go for sure all the time. Yeah. So that's why you see me pushing him or I'm running as fast as I can because I'm either like going
to get back.
Yeah, or I'm meeting him somewhere. I'm like, okay, you go in the car. I'll run from here to there, and then I'll pick him up, and then you can go, and then I'll run back.
Oh gosh,
it's great. It's literally sometimes we're like, tag, you're it.
Yeah.
It's like a sprint all the time, but we do a good job.
It's definitely a balance, and it shows the dedication that the two of you not only have to Umua and each other, but it's also towards your dreams.
Yeah.
It's the fact that you're not gonna let like just changes in life that happen diminish your dreams. You're gonna still go for your dreams, and you're gonna show that to him. So that's a beautiful process.
That's huge for me. It's like that he sees, you know, because my dad, unfortunately, he had to kind of, you know, like give up a lot, and he worked jobs he didn't like, and he was really like outgoing about it, but I could tell when he was heartbroken, you know. He had to do it because my mom just left, you know, like I was 6 months old. He was just like, what are we gonna do, you know? So like unfortunately, like sometimes it can't always happen, but my dad still made it work. He like went to school, he brought us with him, or he passed me off to like my neighbor, or you know, like he still made it happen. And he's a very, very successful man now, but we were very poor when we were young, so he did it in front of me, and that made a huge impact to me, you know, like being, and I guess maybe that comes back to like where you said like, why are you so determined? And maybe it was my dad, because I was like, dude, he went through hell and he lived, like I kind of owe it to him to like be good, you know. But then it turned into like, wow, I want to be good, I want to have a great life, you know. Yeah.
What would you say to someone who looks at the things that you've accomplished and says, oh wow, and they want to do something similar along? What's a small thing they can do in their day-to-day?
Oh my gosh, find something you're terrible at. I know this sounds weird, but find something you're so bad at and it makes you uncomfortable, and attack it. You know, like I never oil paint, and I was terrified to oil paint, and I was terrible at it when I first started it, and then I became really good at it. But I noticed that like every time you overcome something, you become more confident, you know, like I just think you have to get uncomfortable, especially like in this day and age. Like there are so many good people out there, or people that pretend to be really good and everybody buys it on Instagram.
Yeah.
So like being really good at something will eventually pay off. Like right now maybe it doesn't get you 1,000 likes and jobs and verified and this and that, but that's like, that can go away in a heartbeat. But like when you overcome things and you become uncomfortable, you start finding things that do make you happy, but also like do them the same time that you're really uncomfortable. That to me is like, there's no greater thing than being uncomfortable. And then maybe finding something like that's a little beyond you. Like getting my master's degree was terrifying to me, and I have a kid, and we don't have help, and I didn't think I was going to get in, to be honest with you. To be totally honest with you, I applied and I didn't think I was going to get in, and I got in, and it was, the opportunity was there, and I was like, I gotta take this. And it terrified me because I was like, a 3-year-old son, you know, like we don't have help, he doesn't go to school yet, I don't know when am I going to do this? And I was like, okay, obviously this terrifies me, and I'm really uncomfortable with it, but I got up every day at 4. Yeah. And I did that for like a year and a half, and it's now closing in, and I look back and I'm like, holy crap, I did that. And you start to become this like machine that knows things, like you start to like be able to bring things towards you and attract really like good people that you want in your life, you know, like so funny how you came to me like in this time, because it was something I really wanted to do, and it could have been anyone, but it was like it was you, and I know you, and I admire you, and I see you doing the same thing. Like you're like, nope, I you know, the thing with didn't work out at the factory, and I was terrified, but I'm out there, I'm doing it, and look what you're doing. You're gonna go on the boat trip.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, holy crap! So you're doing exactly what the same formula. Like you just don't quit. You're uncomfortable. You sit there hours on end, 30, 40 emails. Maybe you get one back, maybe you don't get any back, but you still do it every day. That's exactly it. You're doing it.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. It's that mentality of like moving forward and knowing like your big goals, even when they seem scary.
Yeah.
And say, okay, but I want to do this. I'm gonna at least try. I'm gonna shoot for the moon, and if I land on the stars, we'll keep going.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But not a lot of people have the tenacity.
Why do you think that is?
Because I think that greatness, people look at greatness and they say, wow, like that's reserved for like the prodigies, and like that's a reserved greatness. And it's like, no, we're all great in different ways, but people are so, from their childhood, they're so like scarred or like get too comfortable or like whatever it is, and they're like, no, I can't do that. Like I can't do that. I didn't dig deep enough to figure out that like for you, like an example, like something happened to you and you could have been like, oh my God, I guess I'm just gonna go work I'm gonna go backwards. I'm gonna go work as a dishwasher and get minimum wage. You're like, hell no, I can take that 12 hours and I can become great, you know? So like you didn't play it safe, because that definitely wasn't the safe.
Yeah.
There was a lot of risk involved. Yeah. There's a lot of really scary things that can happen, but there's also the beauty that can happen. And a lot of people are more comfortable being like, I know I'm gonna get a paycheck. It sucks, I'm not gonna be happy, but I'm gonna get a paycheck. So that's why.
Yeah, it's like the mix of uncertainty with like knowing that they could have something that's lackluster but certain, versus chasing something that's uncertain and not knowing if they're gonna make it or not.
Yeah, we're not, I mean, that's why I've always like been attracted to you, is because I could see that you're like exactly like that. You're not gonna just accept like, oh, alright, I guess. You're gonna be like, no, like, even if my photography is not where I want it to be, I'm gonna go for it. And one day it's gonna be there and people are gonna pay me top dollar because I'm doing something that's in service to myself, to the world, and to others. Like the other day I was looking at your Instagram and I saw something like, it was like a trip that you had been, it was just a montage, but it made me feel like, oh, it's so beautiful. Like, oh, I wanna do that too. And that's important, that people remember like, oh, I can do that too. So like when you had written me, it was like, whoa, what the heck? There couldn't be a better person that I would want to connect and do this with. Like I can't think of one other person in the world. I was like, oh, that's perfect, because she's just like me, like or I'm just like you or something. Like
something in the mix.
Yeah, we're just alike. We're like two people that are like, dude, I want greatness, and like I'm gonna get it. Not like, oh, maybe. Like,
and not in like a self way, not in like a glorifying self. It's more like so that we can make an impact in our communities. And that as an artist, you have that natural inclination of like, you want people to see your art, and not in like a prideful way, in a way of like, you want people to see it and feel something. You want them to be impacted. You want to change people's lives through the art that you're making and what you're doing in life.
Exactly. And you want to have a positive impact, like, when people think of your name, they're like, oh, she was so great, you know, or like, when I always think that, I'm like, what are people gonna say about me when I'm not here anymore, or when I go away, like, oh, she was cool, or, you know, like, oh, she was a dick, like, you know, you don't want to be that person. Like, for me, I want to leave a legacy that, like, maybe the world is better because I was here, you know, and I think when you are a creator, that's what you're doing. It's like you're making the world better, like, more beautiful, like, my art teacher calls us world changers, which I always thought was so cool. She's like, even if you just make something, she's like, you're harvesting something from a greater power and you're bringing it forward. It's like, that's a world changing person. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And that's who you are too. You're a world changer. So it means a lot to like have a podcast and like go out there and like do the sailboating. Even that was your dream and now it's happening. Like,
yes,
what the
absolutely.
heck?
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. I've been sailing since I was like 4.5 years old.
Wow.
So in like this little boat they call an opti, it's like the size of a bathtub. So like going from like a community sailing program when I was like really little, when you could go and do that, to like, oh wait, I'm actually gonna hop on a boat.
Wow, that's
and
so
like
cool.
go to surf spots.
Oh, that's
pretty
nice.
cool.
That's amazing. And that was like something that you thought of and that now you're doing it.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Because it's kind of like, just like we were saying, you have to go for it. Like,
yeah.
You don't want to look back when you're like, I don't know, I've talked to older people because I run a lot, but I'll walk in the morning, so I'll just like talk to the older generations that are on the trail. And they have like such cool stories.
They do.
And a lot of them are just like so encouraging because they're like, no, go do this, go travel, go on the sailboat, go surf, go push yourself, because you're not gonna be able to when you're like 75, 80.
Totally.
Not in the same capacity at least. And also while you're young, you have the energy, you have the health, you have the strength, like all the things.
Yeah.
And you have the time, because if you completely, the way I think of it too is like, if you completely flop and you mess up or something goes awry, okay.
Yeah.
Pick yourself back up.
Figure it out.
Figure something else out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. It's like regret would be the worst thing.
Yes.
For me, I'm like,
when
I can't.
When you ask some of the older people to tell you about their life, they'll tell you about the things they wish they had done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I never wanted it to be like that, so I'm just full send.
And nobody's ever gonna be like, dude, I wish I didn't go on that boat trip surfing.
Yeah, exactly what I'm thinking. I'm like, would I ever regret this? No. Okay, let's make this happen.
No, you would never regret that. And if anything, it'd be a really great story for later on.
Yeah.
You know, it would be a waste if you were still doing some job you hated and you passed this up. You know, like, or if it never came. You know, like I always think that. I'm like, well, what if it, you know, like what if you were working a crappy job and, you know, you didn't put yourself out there and you didn't attract this to your life? Because it didn't just come to you. Mm-hmm. You attracted it. You built this with your courage, you know? So like I guess that's like a major thing that not a lot of people have, is the courage to do that. So yeah, that's...
Speaking of courage, I do want to touch on one other point. It's like, how do you show your work in a way that people can relate to, that's not like pushing your work on them? How do you like have that balance? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. It's like, so I guess that's where like social media kind of is an advantage, is because people can choose to look at it or they cannot. But like as far as like putting it out there and getting people to kind of like come to it, I guess, is like I've always led into this like, maybe it's not for everybody, but the right person will eventually find it. And like that goes back to like the treasure hunt, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I guess not too many things scare me in that realm. Like, I mean, I care. I know a lot of people say they don't care what people think of them. I do. I care what people think about me, but the right people, like people who have like betterment or like they want to be their greatest selves. Those are the people I care about. So, but when you, like Instagram, there's like haters or like, I mean, I don't really have haters, but like I'm sure people aren't a fan of my work. I mean, those kind of things, they don't scare me anymore. Like the things I've been through have been way more scarier. So
yeah.
So putting my art out there sometimes, I'm like, well, if someone doesn't like it, they don't like it. Like I have one piece of a girl flicking somebody off and sitting on a toilet, you know, like. Yeah. I mean, I have a couple of those really weird ones around, but you know, like those are always my most successful ones, which is really strange.
That's sometimes interesting. The ones you're most nervous about sharing, sometimes you say, okay, this is a little different. I don't know how people respond to that. Sometimes that's what does best.
Totally, yeah. It's just again, it's like the courage to put something out there that nobody else would. And you know, it's like, you can't live in fear of anything. You can't live in fear of when COVID came. By the way, when COVID came, that was the most normal I felt in my life. Like everybody else on the planet, like, lives very, you know, comfortably for the most part, but not having a mother and like going through all that was always like there was like this monster out there that I was like evading. So when COVID came and everything shut down and everyone was like worried about life, I was like, oh, that's how I've been like surviving. So it was very normal for me. And it just happened to be the time when I had a baby. Okay.
Well, thank you so much for being on today's podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to link your Instagram and any other details so that people can find out more about your art and what you're doing with the Moon Project and all of that. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and I'm so thankful to have gotten to know you over the years and be able to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much, and likewise, like I said, I wouldn't want to do this with anyone else because you inspire me too, so I was like all excited when you asked me.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good luck on your trip.
Thank you.
Yeah.